Thursday edition for this 26th day of January 2023, which coincidentally, or not coincidentally, I'm not sure which that is in fact Australia Day. For those of you who celebrate that, hope you've had a good day. I've had a good day on the water, actually. Been out on the ocean today. And not much else, I've got to say. In fact, I'm only just back not long ago. Hope you've had a good one if you're celebrating Aussie Day. Let's get stuck in, shall we? You should be seeing my screen. Everything looks like it's happening on my end. Okay. First up, let's look at that shiny stuff, gold, huh? Keeps doing similar things, doesn't it? Rally, back, break through, back to breakout area. Looking a bit bullish, isn't it, really? One would have to say. That doesn't concern us particularly with this setup, but let's go with it. Here's the high of the range. That's the 0200 hour. And the low of the range is bang on the daily pivot. Surprise, surprise. So let's see if we can set up a breakout here. That will be the entry long. That will be the entry short. And the stop loss will be exactly this. Not seeing my chart. That's weird. Sorry, guys. There you go. That should be better. Thank you, Paul P. Had a good day, actually. Don't normally do anything on Australia Day, but we decided to go for a cruise down the bottom of Tasmania this morning out into the great Southern Ocean. Well, almost into the great Southern Ocean. It gets a bit choppy out there, I've got to say. All right, levels. Let's talk about levels. The entry level for the long will be 1950. That's pretty easy to remember. 1950. I'm not seeing the waiting room. Hang on a sec, guys. I need to correct that. There we go. 1950. We've got, 3 minutes to go. I won't actually put that in just yet. And the stop loss will be low of that bar, 1937, let's say. 1950, 1937. That's where we currently sit. I think I can safely set the short, can't I? I think I can do that. So let's do that. Again, as always, when we're testing something, very, very small risk. 0.03, that'll do. That's not going to get us into too much trouble. Waste too much of the boss's money. Actually, he's coming in. I believe he's coming in this afternoon to have a chat about the Kiwi in particular, but probably other things in general. Sell stop at 1937. There we go. Stop loss, 1950. As I say, pretty easy to remember. 50, still a minute and a bit to go. I'll just hang off on that for a tick. My goodness, I've got so much to go through here today. I opened the charts. I didn't get a chance this morning to open the charts as we had to take off early to get on the water. And just came back, as I say, in time to record my segment and post it for the subscribers to the Trading Buddies, what's it called? Inner Circle channel. And man, did I see a lot of opportunities. Hopefully they turn into better than opportunities. I'll go through those, of course, very, very shortly. All right, I think I can place that one now. Okie doke. That's the stop loss for the short, entry for the short underneath the daily pivot. And now we'll do exactly the reverse of that. We'll place a buy stop. Same risk. Buy stop at 1950. Stop loss at 1937. No jokes about me being born then either, right? Righto, there we go. Bang in the middle of that range. That's where I like them to be. That's really nice. So they've got plenty of time to make up their mind which way they want to go here. Hopefully they'll follow through. Righto, I said that I thought that there were many, many opportunities coming up in the market today. Let's go through them, shall we? In fact, thinking very seriously about placing this order. And I just want to talk to Paul when he comes into the room first to see if this is actually a valid directional bias. And what I mean by that is, we've got a new I say we. Actually, I nearly settled in New Zealand instead of Tasmania. Pleased I didn't. Tassie's a great place, but so is the Kiwi land. Both very, very nice countries. This looks slingshotty to me, and an entry under here would make sense. Trading straight into that low, which is not a new low, which is kind of against the grain. But I think TP1, if you take it there, would make sense. But I just want to get a little bit of a confirmation from Paul that the Kiwi should benefit from a new Prime Minister. One thing that does concern me is this head and shoulders, or inverted head and shoulders sitting here, neckline broken, retested higher low. So suggesting that there could be upside coming on that one. Euro hasn't done too badly, actually, for the last few days, if my memory serves me correctly. I haven't really been in front of the charts, but there's also another slingshot candle pattern sitting there. No context, however, for that. I don't have a trade line, but it is sitting there nicely. So I've got a slingshot candle pattern on the weekly, suggesting long, slingshot candle pattern on the daily, suggesting short. Maybe we just trade to here and then look to turn around and go long. That kind of makes sense to me. We shall see. Righto. Now, next, I won't dilly-dally. I've got chunks of them. Now, I want to talk about Euro Swissy, but I'll come back to that. Pound yen. I was talking about that on Monday, and I was very, very enamoured, if you like, or enticed, don't know about enamoured, by the fact that we'd broken this trade line and retested it. The monthly pivot prevented me from taking a trade. And I said I'd like to see a little bit more pullback, maybe to this level here, which would create a convoluted or a double-barreled headed, if you like, bit Tasmanian really, two heads and two shoulders if price were to come down to here. Maybe this is the higher low, and maybe this is the opportunity to get into the market. So I'm going to just have a little chat about that. So if we got in here, stop loss underneath the daily pivot, we're talking about 160, 165 pips, something like that. You pretty much got to take profit there, and that's okay. That's nearly half of the risk. So I'd be pretty happy with that, I think. Have I got an order? I probably have. Deeper retrace would be nice, but this does look okay. I'm going to take it. Very, very small risk. Again, 0.25%. That's my January max, so I'm not a January trader. Doesn't suit me for some reason. Maybe it's psychological, but January tends to be a losing month for me, and thus far that's proven correct. Let's see if we can correct that. Okay, so 0.25% only. We'll go long at 169. Sorry, that's incorrect. 160. Well, straight into a whole number as well. 160.95 will be the entry. 160.95, and the stop loss will be underneath the daily pivot. Daily pivot level is 159.38. So let's go with 159. That's the weekly pivot, sorry. 159.35. That'll do. 159.35. We'll get rid of the take profit, and we'll put our TP1 in at nothing really to stop us. Let's go with that. The low here, 159.45. 159.45. Is that going to be enough? Yeah, I think it will be. 159.45. That'll be our TP1. I think this has got a bit of room to move, right? So we'll just take off a third and we'll move our stops. What are they currently? About 150 or something like that. Let's make it half that, 75. So we won't do any damage if we hit TP1. TP2 will manage later. Buying. What have I done wrong? Kiwi CAD take profit, please ensure trade mode. Something's happened. I might have hit profit on something else. You know what? Don't think we've got anything in the market, have we? We'll see. All right. I'm going to talk to Paul about Euro Kiwi, and we may well place a trade on that as well, pursuant to what he has to say. That will be Euro Kiwi short if he confirms what I think about the Kiwi. I've got a whole stack of other things to talk about, and one of those things is going to be about gold, but I can see Ash is very, very keen to jump in. I bet he's got a trade price.
No, well, do you know, there may well be a trade, but I'm not going to take it. I'm happy to kind of show you what I am looking at currently. It's just it's a strange market open, and it doesn't fill me with too much information. I think I was going to say confidence, but too much information, which sort of does suggest that you know it's going to be maybe a little bit trickier than I'd hoped. But I think that there's a FTSE long in the market, and I think that it's probably from this weekly pivot. The issue really comes from, I guess, the other sort of aspects of the information. So some of the information is suggesting that this is potentially in a downtrend. We see a breakdown here of the 4-hourly, but we also see a hold of this area here, that you know, coming from this particular horizontal level, and a decent looking bar as well on the 4-hour. So I think there's some upside in the FTSE, but there's just been a little bit too much selling for me. You know, into this period, there's just been a little bit too much selling, and I've got to start thinking about, firstly, why, and secondly, why would it go up? You know, from here, what could actually set this trade to go to the upside? And I just don't think it's there yet, even though I think that there's a little grab. The grab, I think, when I'm looking at this on the hourly, this is the trend line that I've got, and the market's bashed its head against that. So there's not a whole bunch of room. I would take it off the daily pivot. I wouldn't take it anywhere in this zone here, because there's not enough room before you need to take your first profit probably. But the daily pivot wouldn't be too bad, because it would suggest there could be an inverted head and shoulders forming. But it would also suggest that could actually go on for some time before we see a decent breakthrough. So because this thing's in the way, not so keen, mate. But I do think that we're probably going up a little bit on the FTSE before we just kind of possibly go into a bit of a range. We might well hit this weekly pivot as well. So, but the market looks okay. And we've had sort of earnings from the US, which have come out again. They've come out, you know, pretty well. Microsoft posted some pretty decent profits from cloud, their cloud system, cloud operations. But the big problem, I think, for Microsoft is their forward guidance wasn't particularly positive. The trade that I am really interested in is still silver, and I have got a silver short on another account where I've hedged it out. But I also try to take it on this account, but I traded it in a slightly different way, where I put stops in place, and every time, you know, so I saw this kind of market come down. I think I might have taken this bar here, and it did come down. I didn't take profit, and no, sorry, it wasn't there. It was here. It was here. I took it here, and I had stops just there. And if I'd had the fortune of this little area not taking me out, then it would have been a great trade, you know, on a short-term basis. But but it hasn't really worked out as yet. And you know, one of the reasons is that silver is in. If we look at this on a slightly shorter, just minimize the screen a little bit, we can see that silver is just in this really horrible range, and there are some trend lines here.
Don't start singing about a horrible range.
There are some trend lines here, and this is probably the trend line here because you can see a little touch there. There are some, closing prices here. There's a touch there. So because we were through, I was relatively comfortable to take the trade, but I keep getting cut out on the short-term time frames because really that's where there would be some more money in this. But maybe I need to change my approach a little bit. But every time it comes down, it gets rejected, and every time it goes up, it gets rejected. So now what I'm waiting for, now I've seen this reject off the trend line, I feel a bit more comfortable about it. And the way that I'm feeling more comfortable about it is that this may well be a decent place now to put a more significant stop. So I think a stop in that area there. Incidentally, the way I'm trading on the other account is with a hedge. So I've hedged it against gold. And I'm I'm not doing that with this this account because I'm trying to compare the two, which is the sort of better way to kind of approach it. So I'm not going to look to hedge this one. I'm just going to look to just to straight trade it. But I'd like it really up at these areas here. But the daily pivot's in the way. So it might be that the daily pivot kind of, gets in the way. And if you then, if you enter around about the daily pivot with a stop up there, you're looking at maybe a 1.5 to 1 to get down to the next level of potential support. There could be a trend line in there, probably the monthly pivot as well, but causes a bit of a problem. And if the monthly pivot does, you're not even going to get a 1-to-1 on that. So that's why I probably have to discard the daily pivot test. Not decent enough risk to reward, even though I don't think it's going to hit this point before this point. But this is where there would be some decent risk. Risk to reward if it comes up to this level, because then you're talking about a 1.5 to 1. So that's when it starts to become more attractive. So this is the zone for me. But this is dependent on the dollar. This would be dependent on the dollar actually doing something decent, and we haven't yet seen that. I also tried to take a dollar.
Won't budge, will it?
Won't budge, mate. And I took a dollar Swiss long yesterday. And I got run over on that as well, where the dollar was looking, and it really interesting looking pattern here, which I was in two minds anyway. But when this started to move up, this looked like it was starting to trend to the upside. Big blow off there, and I was really looking at this breaking through these areas to confirm that we were still going higher. So I traded it at the daily pivot, then I got run over. And not only did I get run over, but it's gone through the trend line at the bottom as well. So there's really nothing to grab on the dollar. There's no decent trends that are holding with the dollar. But I do think that we might well get one. We've got the Aussie also doing very, very well at the minute. The Aussie's a really strong currency. The dollar CAD looks like it's pushed to the upside. We've got the BOC yesterday decided to leave interest rates at expectation, which was a 25 basis point rise. That's weakened the CAD, interestingly, and I guess a lot of that is because it's baked in. Some of that is because it sounded from the statement that the BOC were basically saying the fight is coming into our favor, suggesting that there probably won't be, too many more interest rate hikes. And then you start to go, well, if that's where they are, where are some of the other currencies? The Aussie's probably got a little bit more room. The UK, the BOE has probably got a little bit more room. The ECB's got a lot more room. The SMB's got a lot more room, and of course, the BOJ has got the most amount of room if you kind of can consider the 5% range, but it's got, it's got a big chance that it's got to do something that at least puts them into positive territory. So that puts the CAD at the really, it starts to, I think it's got investors thinking the CAD, the BOC is probably not going to be quite as aggressive as the rest, which puts the CAD on the sell list.
Yeah, and don't put it on the sell list.
Don't really.
I've got a set up at the moment. In fact, I've placed an order long. Well, not in it, but I like the CAD for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I think that the where the CAD now becomes tricky is that economically it's probably doing, if you compare the CAD if you can compare Canada to the UK, no competition at all. And the UK's got no competition with anyone. It's the worst performer in the G7. I don't know if you heard about the ONS yesterday, and no, you probably wouldn't have done. But the
No.
Office of National Statistics about 2 months ago, collected data and stated that the UK was the most productive country in the G7. It's between it was. I think they even beat Japan. So this data point didn't really match some of the other data points, which was interesting. But what happened yesterday was there was a report saying that what they had done was they'd mixed the data with 2 years of data. So they were calculating 2 years of productivity where everybody else was calculating one, and we ended up better. And then when they calculated it properly, we ended up at the bottom of the G7. So the UK is the worst. Yeah, it's terrible, mate. Strikes are going on, and I know there's strikes everywhere. But
so can I pause you there, because last week before, can't remember.
Yeah.
Time goes so fast. You were extremely bearish the pound.
Yeah.
And then it was either earlier this week or late last week. You flipped. Was that on that basis?
No, it was. I flipped on the back of the fact that inflation in the UK is still really, really terribly high, and we had a wage inflation number which started to suggest that it probably because we got strikes going on globally, but that wage inflation suggested that the UK government is buckling more so than the other nations, and they are basically saying, they're giving people more money. Now that's just another inflationary issue. So it's the inflation spiral is starting to pick up, and the UK has got some room to go with interest rates. If you compare it to the other countries, then the UK sits at 3.5%. The Fed's at 4.5% and the BOC's at 4.5%. So it's got a little bit of room to travel, and we've got probably a greater issue in this country with inflation. So that was off that back of that data. But I have to say,
I see the RBA also has got under more pressure today.
Yes, they did. As did the Kiwi. They're under some pressure as well. Inflation at 7%, I think it was reported a couple of days ago, and it was the same with the RBA. So we've got some issues. If you were to compare the Australian situation with the UK, both of them have got inflation issues, but the Australian economy is a lot stronger. The RBA is at 3.1%. So if we're comparing sort of where interest rates are, they've got even more room than the UK, and they've got a stronger economy. So that, a long on the Aussie versus the pound makes a lot of sense right now. And anybody that reads my Telegram group would know that the Aussie was my strongest currency this week. So they have so far done very, very well. So the CAD's difficult, but we've still got this recession problem, and that's the one thing about silver, and this is why I like the hedge trade, but I'm experimenting to try and take a straight trade as well. But the one thing about silver is, because it is an industrial metal and gold isn't, then if anything is going to come down harder, it should be silver. To my mind, it should be silver. The recession concerns are filtering through, but they're only dripping through. There's no flood right now, which is why I think we're seeing silver, pretty relatively sticky. We do need to see some further data from the United States. We've got Australia and New Zealand showing that inflation is sticky. It's staying around. We haven't really had the same from the States as yet. They seem to have it more under control, which puts downward pressure, if you like, on the Fed, and then this pause is still kind of being bandied around. But it doesn't, when you look at the rest of the countries, it seems the dreamland to suggest that's going to happen. I can't see that happening. I can't see there being a pause. So I'm looking for something really to potentially trade short. If you then sort of like look at the indexes, hugely volatile, but they're holding on. This is the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq has come off this trend line now, which makes it again a really interesting short. Sorry, it's probably here actually.
Nice range, like it.
Yeah, that's probably where we are. So we're basically sort of banging our head now against this upper line here at 12,000. and you look at this area here suggests the left shoulder. You know, we are at the bottom end of a market range here, so we'd want to see some sort of reversal pattern down here, and an inverted head and shoulders would be ideal. That puts the Nasdaq into at least probably a month of sideways consolidation. So it's going to have to do quite a lot of work to get through that point. Earnings have been okay, so you know we haven't really got a reason to buy the Nasdaq off the back of earnings. We haven't got a reason to sell it either. The Fed's interest rate is getting probably closer to its upper range, so that takes the pressure off the bearish side. But they're probably going to stay where they are for longer, which takes the pressure off the bullish side. So I think we're much more likely to kind of carve out something down here, potentially carve out a bottom. I did start thinking yesterday that even though I'd love the Nasdaq down at these areas here, pre-COVID highs, I'm wondering whether it's going to take some sort of a new shock to bring us to, to really kind of take us through this area, because it held out pretty well. Over the course of now 3 months, it's held out pretty well down here, and you could count this as well, I think. So we're looking at 6 months really, where the Nasdaq has hit these lows and bounced, and hit these lows and bounced, and hit these lows and bounced. So to take that area out, I think there might have to be a shock. We know that there are global issues out there which could cause a shock, but without really that shock materializing, I don't think we can guess that there's going to be one. Which suggests to me that, if it doesn't show its head, if the Nasdaq pulls back to the monthly pivot or in and around the lower end of this inverted head and shoulders, then it's probably a buy. Until we bash our head.
I think we spoke about this last week as well.
Yeah.
Have we come to a point where people are saying, okay, I'm sick of this Nasdaq. I can't hold on to my longs any longer. Are they getting out? Have we hit that stage where the sentiment cycle, and it looks a little bit like it, in terms of the chart pattern? Yeah. Is that where we are?
Where people are just closing out the Nasdaq positions?
Mm.
I don't think they are, mate. I mean, if
can't take any more pain.
If I'm totally honest with the Nasdaq, I'm getting really interested in buying down here, and I'd like to see one more push down, but I would probably buy at 12,000 if we take this trend line out and go here. And I don't have
we seen the aversion point?
We might have done
that print we saw last week.
Yeah, we might well have done. I think I wouldn't probably buy when I say I'm thinking of buying it, I wouldn't trade it long to hold, but I'm quite interested in actually buying the Nasdaq, as an index, just as an investment, because there's such amazing things going on. I don't know if you're aware of some of the AIs that are out there with the Chat GPT, but Microsoft are dipping their toes into AI. You've got Apple coming out with this headset, which is basically going to be the iPhone, but on a headset. And they're looking to sell that for $3,000 a unit, and they're looking to sell 1 million of those in a year. So you're talking to like 3 billion in on their balance sheet.
As in headset with goggles.
Yeah, so a VR set. Yeah. Yeah,
okay. I don't know how you're walking down the main street with your coffee in your hand, and you haven't got a phone anymore. What's in front of you?
The logistics of it, they confound me a little bit as well, but I'm sure they've got it figured out. Yeah. But we're looking at,
I'm old.
People will buy that stuff, and people love tech, and I just think that we are probably in a phase where tech is just, the next few decades, it's all about tech. When we sort of think about the revolutions that we've had, or the movements that we've had, the industrial revolution was farming, all these sort of like different things that have happened in human history. We are really a tech-based species now. So
absolutely.
I don't think you can go away from the Nasdaq when it comes down to it, and you know, cryptos kind of fall under the same banner for me. So they're the markets that I'm interested in actually investing in this year. Whether we've seen the trigger to kind of get me in yet is probably questionable. I'm thinking about it. I've got to be honest. I'm thinking about just kind of getting in and accepting if it dips down, because it's going to go beyond this level eventually. But it, you know, it is a consideration. So I don't think people would be getting out. I think that people love tech.
You've seen what the getting out of their their pajamas. I don't know. Anyway, it looks a little bit sentiment cycle-ish to me. So I think it may be buying time or thinking about it. Certainly, the one thing that you mentioned there was cryptos.
Yes,
and we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I think, about it, but I saw an article the other day where Russia, and this may not be news to you or anybody else, where Russia and Iran are secretly, I don't think it's secretly, getting together and saying we're creating a cryptocurrency backed by gold.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't. Doesn't surprise me, but yeah, I haven't seen that.
Interesting. Now, what does that do for Bitcoin? What does that do for gold? Is a good question. But I'll show you the article.
Yeah, let's have a look, mate. Yeah, let's have a look, because you know, gold is the other story this year. But I've been looking for a decent pullback in gold to kind of get in. I have got gold. I suppose exposure, because I've also got investment in a mining company. So I'll be okay if that goes, but I would have liked to have kind of, I don't know, got in significantly. It's not a huge position I've got. It's okay, but it's not big enough, I don't think.
You can always build, mate.
You can always build, I suppose. So I hate it when things have got. I mean, gold's got pretty frantic. That's the big problem with it. It needs to kind of it needs to pull back. Not that far from that. You know, not a million miles away from that double top area, which means all-time highs.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, looks like it could go through there.
I'll put that link if anybody's interested in that.
That is interesting. I tell you, mate. I tell you why that's even more interesting, because if nations like that are exploring a cryptocurrency backed by gold, that is suggesting that they are trying to take on the dollar. To me, that's the first thing I think. They're trying to take.
Of course they are. Yes, of course.
You know, and who wouldn't really? Which other nations wouldn't be interested in exploring this as a possibility? You know, backing their currency by gold. It would be fascinating, really, if we were to go back to that particular position. But that does mean that the price of gold is going to go through the roof, because of course you're going to have to buy and sell gold for trade. You know,
I'm not suggesting that we jump into gold right now, because I think it's got a pullback to come. But I think exactly what you're thinking, and if that actually does happen. Again, the more gold rises, the more the dollar falls. It's going to create enormous opportunities to trade.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I, like you, I want to position myself to get rid of that US dollar, like everybody. And we've been talking about it for a long time, so it's no surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would interest me. And if we look at and we can have a look at this, is obviously some of the other information that I'd be looking at when I'm making my decisions. This is the Nasdaq. So the Nasdaq on the COT data last week, pretty negative as it went. You know, in as much that we started to see some buying, but the last 2 weeks, as we approach those highs, the speculators are now saying no more. So this is another reason that I'm not keen to get into the Nasdaq just yet. You got a Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Here we go. But you got a Bitcoin. Actually, Bitcoin has held its ground so far. I mean, look at the area we're at. This is all of last year's data. And this is how low it was at, at one point during last year. It's not yet positive, but that is a long way from that point to that point. We're talking about 6,500 net selling down here, 1,000 net to negative down here. So there's a huge difference between these numbers, and it's still buying, and people are still buying Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is looking relatively stable. You then bring on gold. Gold is let's make this a little bit bigger. Gold is continuing to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. This market is getting pretty hot in accordance to COT data. So no real kind of signal there that the gold market is all of a sudden going to come down. So I don't think you can sell gold. I think all you can hope for is a pullback so you can buy it. It doesn't look like a selling opportunity. Then you got silver, and silver is just leveling off, and that's the only reason that I've chosen to see if that I can get a little bit of downside with silver, but just leveling off. So the buying might have leveled off a little bit on silver, but the commitment of traders does not suggest at this stage that we should be buying the Nasdaq. I think is sort of like, back to the point of this particular chart here. It's not suggesting that we should be trading the Nasdaq. If it pops through here and comes back and we see the COT data suggesting buy, that's the time to do it. I don't think you can trade it just before we hit this potential resistance point, or maybe we're on it. I haven't tightened this line up, but if we tighten this line up to there, then we're right on top of this resistance point. So it suggests coming back. But a challenge, mate. There is a bit of a challenge kind of going on. You were talking about January and how January doesn't tend to do too well with you. Well, the fundamental data, I mean, it's been tricky data, really. And because January is such a significant month for the stock market, because lots of positions are basically taken in January and held throughout the rest of the year. It's really kind of like it's a bit of a coin toss. It's a bit of a coin toss, and then a coin toss. It's a bit of a coin toss. It's a coin toss, and it's a coin toss. And when you've tossed that coin, then you basically sort of like get into a position and leave it. You either sell it and wait for January to clear and maybe hold on to it because it's so significant, or you buy it and wait for the month to clear and hold on to it because it's so significant for the rest of the year. So yeah, interesting month, and fundamental data is mixed, and what I didn't like yesterday was seeing that Australian CPI data come out hotter when we're meant to be in an environment where inflation is getting under control. Doesn't look to me like that's the case.
They're tipping, economists that is, they're tipping that interest rates in Australia will not be moving upward come the end of the year. In fact, they'll be moving down. That would be worth seeing.
Well, absolutely, mate. Well, I mean, that does kind of lift the lid off the market a little bit, doesn't it?
They've been wrong before.
Yeah, the economists.
I'm going to place this. Are you done for now? I'm going to place this.
Done for now. Good morning, by the way, to everyone. Lewis, Swee, Paul, and Simon. How are you guys doing? If you want to come on at any point and give us an opinion, you are more than welcome to do so. But yeah, let's do your order, mate. And I'm going to just check this silver trade out and see if there's a signal.
Cool. So I was talking about it before, and I actually did place this, but not on this chart, so I better do that. But I'll give you the reasoning beforehand, and this will be counterintuitive to most people's thought processes, because that looks so bearish, it's just not funny. But what I see is an oversold market, first up. Then I go to the weekly chart, and I see the three amigos sitting there, and they have done what they do. They've done a beautiful job. The one thing I don't see is a strong horizontal level to push us back up. But I do see a strong hesitation here, if you like. And that, to me, suggests that phase 3 of this move may well be done. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So then I marry that up with the daily chart, and I speak about this all the time, of course. This is an inverted Three Amigos, if you like. And that's kind of what I'm playing here. But because it's so, pardon me, counter trend and probably counterintuitive to some degree, there's the range that we're talking about in there. We've had one false break, went back, retested the breakout, as you would expect. Second breakout, also false, went back, retested the top of the range. Third breakout, also false, yet to retest the top of the range. So to my way of thinking, when I see the Three Amigos and a range, I always expect the next move to be the opposite, right? In other words, breakout to the downside. So this is the reverse of that. And I've got a nice little slingshot candle pattern sitting there as well. I've got some nice separation on the trade line. I've got the top of the range to aim for. I've got a target here for my first take profit. So I think that's just a trade that I have to take. Unfortunately, I'm exposed on pound yen, so I'll be aggregating the risk on this more than I want, frankly, because like I said before, I only like to trade 0.25% in January because it's an SH1T month for me generally. But let's try and turn that around. So I'm going to place this order, and we're going to buy the bar, and we're going to put a stop loss underneath it. Now we're actually going to put our entry above the bar before, because it just makes sense to me to do that. Okay, so levels. Well, I'll place the order. Simple. So 0.25% max for me. If you're having a happy January, then you might want to rethink that. Or if you're having an SH12 January, you might want to rethink it in the opposite direction. Entry level above this bar here will be 97.85, 0.9785. The stop loss will be, actually, we'll just trade the bottom of that candle, because if it goes to there, it's going to here. That's not going to worry me. 95.85. Oops, I'm going to put a zero in there. 0.9585, but not put a zero in there. We're on CAD yen, aren't we? There's PB. Hello, mate.
Hi, buddy. You're muted.
97.85. Stop loss is 95.85. We'll get rid of the take profit pips. We'll go to TP1 and we'll get rid of the 15 pips nominal. We'll go to 98.95. And we'll remove, if this goes, there's a lot of room here. If it doesn't go, then it's probably going to stop here somewhere. So we better take a second profit, I think, around about the top of that range. MR1, I don't know how to do that. So we'll get rid of, let's say, 1/3 of the position at TP1 and put our stop loss in a bit of a safe place. What's that? 695.85, 97.85 is 200. Let's go 100 off that. That'll get us pretty safe at TP1. TP2's gone. That's all good. We're buying. Rightio. Happy days. Just repeat those levels for you. Entries at 97.85. Stop loss is 200 pips. TP1's at 110 pips. And we're going to close 1/3 at that point. Like I said, we'll probably take a second profit up here. Would certainly move our stops to entry at that level. If we get real lucky, we could finish up back here somewhere. We'll see.
Nice job, mate.
That is that one. I don't think gold's triggered. No, it hasn't. All good. I'm going to go to Euro Kiwi and bring Paul in and ask him why I should or should not go short Euro Kiwi. Mate, Jacinda Ardern, call the pin. Your good friend. You've been in love with her since she took office because she's running the economy so well and making all these wonderful things. be tragedy for the Kiwi, wouldn't it?
Look, to be honest, I don't think Jacinda Ardern's resignation will have very much impact on the running of the economy. Grant Robertson, the treasurer, runs the economy in New Zealand very clearly, and Jacinda Ardern has very little to do with it. Jacinda Ardern's really run a bit of a social policy in New Zealand, and look, there's no doubt that she's a lot more popular outside of New Zealand than she is inside New Zealand. I don't know if you guys know this, but she's she's got the most threats of any New Zealand politician in history by more than 100 times. I think she's had in New Zealand. She's had more than 5,000 threats in the last 12 months. She is hated in New Zealand by a large group of the society, and for mine, that's just garbage. There's just no need to threaten politicians and their families, which has been, it's disgusting. But there's no doubt that she's incredibly unpopular in parts of New Zealand. She still, she still leads the most popular prime minister polls. So she's very much a polarising figure in New Zealand, where some people love the vision and some people lack the inability to make the vision happen or anything happen. I put in my Facebook post the other day that I found their ability to make nothing happen completely astounding. The ability to actually do nothing over a long period of time is insane. I don't know how they've done it for so long. Jacinda has been a poster child for New Zealand, been great for tourism, apart from COVID. And I think that's it for mine. Not only Jacinda, but at a time when the world was very keen on charismatic leaders, COVID turned up and we really needed leaders with a bit more starch and principle. And she did a pretty good job in the early days of the COVID stuff in New Zealand, but she got a bit lost, I think, after that. And the truth is, I just think she was far too nice a person to be making, she got into politics to make social change in New Zealand, to drive social change in New Zealand. She really believes in social change. She's a person who talks a lot about, caring, wonderful values. And all of a sudden she had to make decisions really about how many New Zealanders were going to die from COVID. And, she's not the only one. All around the world, leaders had to make a decision, you do this many die. You do this many die. You do this many die. You do nothing. Business goes broke and your economy falters. And I don't think many people who got into politics for vision are really equipped for making decisions where, hundreds and thousands of people's lives are going to be impacted by them. And I think it battered her, to be honest. I think she really struggled. In fact, the last time COVID hit New Zealand quite badly, there was a lockdown in Auckland only. And I think Auckland might have been locked down for maybe 4 to 5 weeks before she'd go. She wouldn't even go there.
I'm really sorry to cut in, mate. I've got a trade on silver. If anybody is interested, I will. Okay, mate. Well, let's do this then, and do that, and do that, and do that. Okay. So this is the trade on silver. It's obviously a short, as we've been discussing, and the just trying to kind of get out of this range. I don't with this this particular trade. I mean, we got now enough room. If we have a look down 20 to 20, we got enough room to get to the monthly pivot at better than 1-to-1. If we're getting into the market here, this is about recession. This is the trade's all about recession. It's not really a setup. It is a technical setup as well, but it's not about the technical setup. This is about sort of looking that to see some of these industrial kind of commodities just ease off a little bit. So the question that you will have to pose to yourself is: do you want to kind of take profit nice and early and just take a technical area, or do you want to see if this one's got some room to run? Because if we look at how far silver's come, it's got areas down here, maybe an area down here. This could possibly go some distance. So how you manage the trades will be down to you. My personal suggestion would be take half, and then you got a free one, and see if it goes. There's no guarantee. What we've seen with silver and gold is that they've been pretty resilient, but this is a recession trade. This is recession fears starting to pick up a little bit. I'm not expecting silver to go bearish by any stretch, but I am expecting a test of these levels, or I am anticipating, I should say, a test of these levels. And for that reason, that's the way I'm going to play it. So there we go. There's the trade, mate. Silver is a short. Now that's the futures. So let me give you the the spot prices. Well, the spot prices will be 23.80 in and around. It's currently at 23.78, so a couple of cents off, but 23.80. Looks like this this pivot down is at 23.40, so you got 40 to the downside, and you will have 23. Call it 20. Yeah, it's going to be 23.97 to the upside. So looking at a 17 to the upside, and what's just happened with that pivot? We don't care about this one. This is the one we're after anyway. So looks like around about a 40 to the downside. I'm not sure what's happened there. That's 20. Yeah, it looks like a 2-to-1 to that point actually. So even if you do take half off, you'll have some profit and still have a free trade. So yeah, there's the trade, short on silver.
Happy days with your bias like that. That's very, very good.
Yes.
Paul's just had to duck off to strangle a dog, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, incidentally, you could take this trade as a hedge. You could take the hedge trade and do it that way instead, and take the short on silver and long gold at this particular point. That's also an option.
Paul, just thanks, mate. To I guess bring a conclusion to the Ardern resignation. Is it going to make a difference? Doesn't seem to have made too much difference to the Kiwi at the moment. Should it, medium term, short term, long term, or business as usual?
I think it will make a difference over a period of time, Jeff. The problem the guy that's coming, Chris Hipkins in New Zealand, he's the opposite of Ardern. He's very practical. He's taking a view of what's popular and what's unpopular. He's going to ditch. Look, Labor's got all these visionary policies that they can't get done, and he's going to ditch the whole lot. And he's going to get back to, hey, the cost of living's out of control. Let's try to do something about that. He's going to try and do some popular stuff in New Zealand. But I think when he does that, he's going to walk away from, to some degree, this legislation to try and privatise water in New Zealand, which is not extremely unpopular, but it's quite complicated.
Can you say that again? What was it?
I think he'll walk away to some degree from the policy to privatise water in New Zealand. Now,
you would hope so.
That's quite complicated policy, Jeff, because my understanding is that the pipes leave the ownership of the local councils and become centralised, but the local councils who don't own them anymore are able to borrow to the value of them. Now, financial markets don't like that kind of that's not a small amount of money, Jeff, and so local councils to borrow against assets they no longer own. And again, I could be wrong about that, but also, this is co-governance where Māori are given compulsory say in the outcome of the organisations. There's been a big part of the Three Waters stuff. It's quite vague in New Zealand what that actually sort of means. And I think having that go away, financial markets might like a guy who's far more practical. He's a guy that I think he's going to say what he means. He's going to mean what he says. And I think that's the problem with Jacinda. New Zealanders couldn't work out what the hell she meant. Jacinda, if you don't know, has got a PR degree majoring in marketing. And that's what she is.
Explains a lot. Yeah.
And in New Zealand, we're not really, with due respect to other countries, we're not really that kind of country. So for a little while, I think New Zealand got a bit carried away with some of that talk. But I think Hipkins is far more what I would call old style New Zealand. He's a Jeff Pine. He's going to say what he means, and he's going to get on with trying to get it done. And I think that if he can do that, I think the financial markets might take quite kindly to that.
He might have to put a lead boot on if that's the case. If he's a bit like Jeff Pine, because he's going to have his foot. He's going to have his foot in his mouth.
And I think he will too, Jeff. One of the things I really like about him, a couple of times in the last few years, he said some pretty stupid things, and he's been pretty quick to apologise when he's made some mistakes. I think he referred to an ex-Prime Minister's family and some stuff in Parliament, and immediately, got called on it, withdrew it, apologised for it, said that family shouldn't be brought into this kind of stuff. And I think he's got I think he's got a little bit of integrity and a little bit of value. And one thing to be clear,
value, yeah, sounds good.
Jacinda does have integrity. I don't mean that she doesn't, but I think he's far more relatable to New Zealanders, and I think he might be far more relatable to financial markets. But we're going to have to go through, like everyone else in the world, right? He's got to name a cabinet. He's got to pull back some policy, name some policy, start to make some stuff happen. He's got to, again, he's got a Māori caucus that's about 20% of his people. Still have to keep the Māori caucus happy while he does all this stuff. So there's quite a lot of politics inside his own party to deal with as well. So I think the markets will like him over a period of time, but the general election's in October, so the markets may not price it as effective.
So does that mean is he a shoo-in, mate? I mean, is he basically got the gig, or does he have to go through an election process?
Hipkins is the new Prime Minister yesterday.
Okay.
So Hipkins took over. He is the Prime Minister, but he's got a general election
for 9 months. Yeah.
Interesting. So so there's no uncertainty until at least we hit September sort of time. We're actually sort of relatively settled down.
Well, we're settled for that period of time, but they're getting smashed in the polls. So again,
right.
If they were getting smashed more in the polls 3 months down the track, they don't have a lot of standout leadership options. Well, they might go back to Ardern if they're really getting smashed 4 months down the track. There's been talk in New Zealand for the last year that Ardern was looking for a global position with the United Nations, something like that. And the feeling is that she's off to fulfill that,
Right.
So lots goes on in New Zealand.
There's no kind of reason for the market to kind of perceive that there's some imbalance in New Zealand now, because there's a PM being put in place. There's somebody at the helm, so actually the market shouldn't need to react off the back of that news actually at all, really.
Well, I think the market over time might feel that it's in more consistent hands.
Yeah,
and markets like consistent hands.
Yeah, but over the next sort of few weeks, we're probably looking at business as usual, not really, or almost nothing to see at this stage.
Yeah, to be honest, Ash, I think what you might see in the next 4 weeks is the direction through to the election. If Hipkins creates some credibility, I think we might see a bit of a rally in the Kiwi. Right. And if the market doesn't buy what he's selling, I think we might see the Kiwi start to push down a little bit before the election.
Right. Inflation data
raises the question for me. Sorry, Matt.
I was just going to say,
the question for me. Did she jump or was she pushed, mate?
Look, it's one of those things. This is one of the issues with that organisation, Jeff, is that we'll never know. Officially,
it doesn't matter really, I suppose.
Yeah, and again, Jeff, I think, I'm not her biggest fan, but I really admire parts of what she's done. I think she deserves a lot of respect for what she did with New Zealand COVID. And again, I think it's taken a huge personal toll on her. Her own wedding was in an area that got quarantined, so she couldn't get married. Had to be cancelled a couple of days before her wedding. She hasn't had a great run with a few things. And
hasn't had it all on a platter, that's for sure.
Yeah. As inflation came in at 7.2 or 7.3, same as the last quarter. Disturbing in there is food. Food prices in New Zealand are by a record amount in the last 30 years, the highest.
Yeah.
In there as well, there's still a lot of rubbish. There's still airfares, household building costs, stuff that don't affect the people who are really affected by inflation. I don't think that stuff is. I don't think that stuff is going to keep. Airfares are not going to keep playing out in inflation. You know how it's year on year. A year from now, it's not going to go on up the same amount again to keep playing that stuff out. Why don't you guys have a quick New Zealand dollar chart, just a straight New Zealand dollar chart?
Yes.
Anyway on it?
No, on anybody's. I turned it to speaker mode so we could have a chat.
Well, okay. I don't have one immediately, but I can get one. Have you got one, Ash?
I can. No, I can get one too. Hold on 1 second. Kiwi dollar. Where are you? There you are. Okay, let's bring you in.
I was kind of hoping you'd say it's going to be absolutely fantastic for the Kiwi in this week, mate. So I've got a Euro Kiwi set up short, and I'm thinking, might be worth it.
Can you go to monthly on me for me?
Sure.
Look, I think one of the things that's going on in New Zealand, right, is that they're talking about the cost of building material coming from overseas is driving inflation.
Yeah.
But if you have a look at this chart, you go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The New Zealand dollar is down a reasonable amount still. And if the New Zealand dollar And if you go back, to the start of the quarter, it's down even more. And if the New Zealand dollar is down, then buying overseas building supplies to bring them to New Zealand costs more New Zealand dollars, and that's inflationary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the New Zealand dollar was to stabilise, if you have a look at that run down to sort of August around there,
Yeah.
it's no wonder that things coming from overseas were costing more, given you look at that. So I think the inflation picture in New Zealand is a bit overblown. I think if the New Zealand dollar could stabilise, push up a little bit, stabilise, I think the inflation number will disappear quite quickly, because a lot of it is because our money is costing more of our money to buy stuff. And, so I think that stuff's, I think the inflation pictures in New Zealand is not as bad as it looks. And again, I don't want to speak ill of people with less money, but, international airfares are not impacting poor people. What the rate of inflation is in international airfares, that's not a real contributor here. And as Air New Zealand gets more routes open, more planes come in, Emirates comes back to New Zealand, these fares will come back to normal over a period of time. So I think some of the stuff that's driving inflation in New Zealand might actually disappear over the next 6 months. And again, everyone's talking. This is, you'll love this, Ash. Everyone's talking about getting inflation back to 1 to 3%. Well, that's been a great band for a long, long period of time. But for now, maybe if we could just get it under 5%, the Reserve Bank would be a bit happier. Under 4%, the Reserve Bank would be a bit happier. It doesn't have to go back to the band in 2 weeks. It's going to take a little while for this to fall through the system. And I think New Zealand's not in a bad spot for some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's agreed, mate. Do you know what I think interesting about airfares? COVID smashed them up. They've really, really hammered the airline industry, and I saw it from some of the shares. I was trying to buy shares in EasyJet actually at the time, and they hadn't recovered before the Ukrainian war. So I do agree with you about airfares, but I think that there's going to be a lot of pain for those airline companies as they attempt to figure out how they're going to claw back some of the losses that they're still enduring. They were paying fines because they were using parts of the runway that they just didn't need. During COVID, the planes were parked, and some of the companies just refused to pay. They were like, well, we're not using the planes. Well, you're using the runway. So you've still got to pay Heathrow and Gatwick and the airports. So the airline industry, I think, is going to take a long time to come back. And yeah, they probably can't push it too much because people just won't fly anymore. But I think airline inflation probably won't kind of hit the highs. But it's another one of those that's probably going to be quite, it's going to stick around for a while. Those higher points.
I think things like pent up demand for travel, Ash, will fade away at some point in there as well. I struggle to believe that airfares will rise as much in the next 12 months as in the last 12 months. Yeah. And therefore, it'll come out of the inflation figures. The impact of it will come out of the inflation figures, So
yeah,
it's one of those things. As I've said, I didn't vote for this government, and I'll vote for Hipkins if he's the best option for New Zealand. But it's unlikely I'll vote for him at this point. But I think New Zealand's in a pretty solid position. And again, I think total debt to GDP 20% in New Zealand. It's not out of control. We just come in some great numbers coming today. Have you seen the match?
No, I haven't.
Like to say that.
I haven't seen the numbers from New Zealand. Actually, I don't know why. That must have come in overnight, did it?
Yeah, it would have been. We came in, deficit less than expected. There was some solid debt numbers came in for New Zealand overnight, and all better than expected. And to be fair, the Treasury's been pretty bleak. I think government spending's down 5.7 trillion for the quarter compared to last year, which it should be, because that's throwing money around last year as throwing it around.
Actually, I don't have those. I don't have those numbers reported on my news feed, and I don't know why.
Well,
are they government numbers? Are they?
The government numbers, yeah. The government was. Obviously, it's one of the things at the moment. It's the same everywhere, right? When you have a change of prime minister, everything changes with it. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of news, and both parties are trying to get people in the news and get headlines and try and get into the news cycle. A lot of rubbish on the news at the moment, and this kind of stuff gets buried a bit. but decent numbers.
Yeah, that they are good. Interestingly, when you sort of, if you look at the kind of the broad areas to kind of get some of the data, New Zealand's numbers don't really get released. They don't really get kind of reported on quite as much as the dollar is everywhere, and then you sort of like start going down. The ECB's everywhere, the euros everywhere. Actually, a lot harder to find numbers from New Zealand. So it's really useful you coming on and letting us know that.
They've only just got the internet a couple of years ago, mate.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
He doesn't like that.
Honestly, you live in Tasmania, buddy.
I know, and loving it.
Rest of our guys have got 2 arms and 2 legs. And you just start living with married families, Jeff.
Actually, I had an inverted head and shoulders there today that had 2 heads, and I related it. It's now called the Tassie inverted head and shoulders. Yeah. Hey, had a nice day today.
What's that?
Sorry?
Something that fascinates me about your show, right? Now, I don't know how many people are watching this on YouTube, right? But I know that in the Zoom, right, the numbers in the Zoom are still quite low. But the people in the Zoom are making a shitload of money.
All right.
Awesome. Some of those names you see in that Zoom are some of the top traders we've got, still turning up and watching your show. And, people who aren't doing quite so well, they don't seem to have the motivation. It's a bit interesting for mine. I would have thought, this is a show worth seeing a lot more people because it is a really good show.
Yeah, well, we love it, mate. We love it. Jeff and I had the option to kind of come off to not do Monday, but we were quite keen to come in because it's just nice to hook up, and just share information. That's what it's about. Buddy. See your buddy. Yeah, we got to see our buddies.
You got to find a different expression than hook up, though, buddy.
Well, we are actually. You're too old.
Otherwise, be all right.
We're at the top of the hour, so we are basically at the last furlong of the show, and this is the point where we are about to say goodbye. But we will open the floor if anybody does have anything to add, or they want to come on camera, or just have a general chat. If you just want to come on audio, you guys are always welcome. The trades that we've got, silver short is my one, and Jeff, you've got a CAD yen long. That's correct,
guys,
isn't it?
I've got to jump straight out. I've got another call, and Simon and your show is going to come and join me, I think. So we're going to go and do some charity stuff with Wish. Thanks for inviting me in, guys. Always nice to have a chat. And I think New Zealand's a watch to some degree at the moment, Jeff. I think you're likely to get a decent move in either direction as we settle into this new Prime Minister and see what impact he does have in confidence, See you guys.
Yep.
Nice one, buddy. Mate. Thanks for popping in. See you soon.
Righto. As always, euro dollar comes into focus. Let me share that with you. And I'm hoping it's not too late, frankly. I mean, I don't have a trade because I don't have a setup. But as usual on a Thursday, when we've got an untested daily pivot, we look to the charts and go, well, how can we get into this blasted thing and trade it down to the daily pivot? Well, it's too close now. But I don't have a setup. But I do have 3 amigos. I do have a double top, and I'm desperate for a lower high in here before the daily pivot's tested. So I'll tell a fib, I'll probably be asleep when it happens. But if I get something like that and something like this, break, don't take out the highs, come back underneath, retest. You can either enter there or enter there. First profit there, target there, game over. That's exactly what I'd be wanting to do if I was going to be awake. I suspect that it'll take too long for that to happen, or we'll get a daily pivot test before. If we do, then that's out. But if we don't have a daily pivot test, then that's definitely on the cards. A little bit later. I didn't give you. Did I give you the CAD yen? I did give you the CAD yen numbers.
You did give us CAD yen. Lewis says he likes the pound yen long more than the CAD yen. I don't know whether you also looked at that one. Did you?
Well, I'm in it.
You're in that one. Oh, great. Okay,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one I'd like to be in, but I just can't keep exposing myself to the yen because it's just not doing good things.
Yeah.
This could be a hedge, however, against it.
Yeah.
It could be Kiwi yen short, right? I've been looking to trade Kiwi yen short.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I wanted to talk to Paul, but about the Kiwi. This is at a pretty strong level in terms of horizontal. Not that strong. Okay. It's at a reasonable level. It's been resistance here, support here, a bit of junk through there, but it's in a range of its own at the moment. This range here is suggesting that we go long, and I get that. But what I do see is this level here. And I'm thinking price back to here, then we look for buyers. But in the meantime, we may have an opportunity to trade it short. Off the top of the range, you can see that range is pretty clear. We've come off the top of it. We tried to get through there. Wouldn't budge through the monthly pivot. A lower high here means something to me. And if we get that lower high, I think there's a sell on, maybe down to this level here, certainly, maybe even a little bit lower down to the bottom of that channel again. I'm not really thinking that. I'm not thinking the bottom of the channel because we've already come off the bottom, but I am thinking this level here, 80 to 60 odd. So if I can get into that short, look to flip then and trade it back to the top of that range, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I like
for me
that.
on Kiwi. And the other one that I haven't placed the order on, and again, it's got the Kiwi involved in it, is Euro Kiwi. Now, Euro Kiwi is a little bit messy in this area, but if you look at the market structure, that's what I see. And again, we've come off the top and we're looking for the bottom. This level here is a little bit problematic. So if you do get into that short from up here somewhere, you probably need to look at that level as a profit level. But that's where we're at. I've got a slingshot candle pattern that suits me. And I'm going to have to look at my exposure. I think I've only got Kiwi. I think I'm okay with the Kiwi. But certainly I can place an order there short. I can place a stop loss here, or if I'm a little bit more conservative, I could put it up there. So I will place that order, right? I'll give you the levels if you want. I might as well just place it. I haven't got a chart, have I? Very quickly. I know you're bursting to get somewhere else, you guys. and it is 1 o'clock here in Australia on Australia Day. Why am I here? It's like we said before, because we enjoy it. We have a wonderful time here. It's real good fun. So daily chart. Oh, look at that level. It's right on the monthly. Can I do this?
Don't do it if it's a rush, mate. That's what I would suggest. This is super dangerous. Yeah, if it's super dangerous and you're...
I didn't realise the monthly pivot was dead there. And you can see what the monthly pivot keeps rejecting price, or price keeps rejecting. So no, I'm going to wait for a better entry, and the better entry could come from up here somewhere, maybe as a false break of resistance. I've got to get some profit in the bank before I hit here, guys. Sorry, false alarm. Fair point.
I mean that's pretty wise, mate. Well, let's wrap her up, mate. I've just heard my headphones start to crackle, so I think I might even lose audio any second. Yeah. I'm sending the other ones back, by the way. Those other ones that were meant to be all singing, all dancing, they started doing something really odd to my system. It was flickering. It's like a surge of some sort of power surge was going through my system. So they're going back. I'm hopefully getting some others. These are the old ones that they're just dying. So I'm getting some new ones on hopefully Friday.
So far they work.
These ones work at the minute. I will see you on Monday, mate, and everybody else.
You bet, mate. Yep. Happy days. Have a great weekend. All of those who have been in through thick and thin today, thank you very much for your company. Thanks for being our trading buddies. Thank you, Ash, for being my trading buddy, and look forward to your company next week. One and all, have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye for now. See you.